Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Blood Ties. Russell Boyd knew death like an old friend. 15 years in Special Forces had taught him to recognize its approach, the stillness before chaos, the weight of watching eyes. He'd felt that same heaviness in the air when he returned home after his fourth deployment. His wife Adrienne's embrace felt rehearsed when he walked through the door of their modest Virginia home. Their son Travis, now 14, hung back in the hallway, something guarded in his eyes that hadn't been there in the video calls. "Welcome home, soldier," Adrienne said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Russell noticed the unfamiliar earrings, the subtle change in her perfume. "Good to be back," he lied, setting down his duffel. Something was wrong in his house. He could feel it in his bones. That night, Russell unpacked while Adrienne made dinner. As he stored his gear in the closet, he discovered a man's watch tucked beneath her sweaters. Not his, not something he'd ever seen before. He pocketed it without a word, his mind already calculating, assessing. The dinner conversation was strained. Adrienne talked about her new job at the real estate office, about Travis's school, about the neighbors. Russell nodded, but he was watching Travis, who barely touched his food. "Everything okay, son?" Russell asked. Travis looked up, then quickly away. "Yeah, fine. Just homework stress." Russell didn't push. He'd learned patience in Afghanistan. Information came to those who waited. Later that week, Russell followed Adrienne to what she claimed was a meeting with clients. Instead, she drove to an upscale restaurant across town. Through the window, Russell watched her embrace a tall man with a military bearing. The man wore an expensive suit, but Russell recognized the posture, the situational awareness. This was someone who had served. A quick license plate check through an old Army contact revealed the man was Liam Reynolds, former Marine Corps, now working for a private security firm with government contracts. The same firm that provided security for the military base where Russell was stationed. The pieces started falling into place, but Russell needed more information. He needed to understand the full scope of what he was facing before he made his move. He installed small cameras in the house, set up monitoring software on the family devices. Within days, he had his confirmation, text messages, calls, photos. Adrienne and Reynolds had been seeing each other for over a year. But there was something else concerning him. References to Russell's unit, to his deployment schedule, to mission details that should have been classified. Then came mentions of a big score and retirement plan. Reynolds was pumping Adrienne for information, using her to get to something valuable. Russell's last deployment had involved securing a shipment of specialized military hardware. The convoy routes, the security protocols, all information that Reynolds seemed desperately interested in. Russell watched his son growing more withdrawn each day. The boy knew something, but fear kept him silent. "Travis," Russell said one evening, finding his son alone in the backyard. "You know you can tell me anything, right? Anything at all." Travis looked at his father, his eyes haunted. "I can't, Dad. I just can't." Russell nodded, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "When you're ready, then." That night, Russell heard Travis crying in his room. He stood outside the door, listening, his hand on the knob. Then he heard Travis whisper into his phone, "I can't keep doing this, Liam. He's my dad." Russell's blood ran cold. Reynolds had gotten to his son, too. Chapter 2, Shadows of Betrayal. Russell began mapping the connections between Reynolds and his wife, discovering a network that extended beyond just an affair. Reynolds had 3 brothers, all former military, all now working for various security contractors. Phone records showed regular contact between Adrienne and 2 of the brothers, Derek and Cole Reynolds. When Russell mentioned running into an old friend who now worked private security, Adrienne's reaction was revealing. A moment of panic quickly masked, followed by probing questions about what the friend had said. "Just catching up," Russell told her, watching her shoulders relax. "Might look into that line of work myself when my contract's up next year." "Really?" Adrienne said, her voice too casual. "I thought you were career military." "Time to think about the future," Russell replied, studying her face. "Make some real money for a change." That night, he found her on the phone in the bathroom, whispering urgently. "He knows something," she was saying. "No, I don't think he knows about us. But he mentioned private security. We need to move faster." Russell began backtracking through his last deployment records. His unit had been tasked with escorting an unmarked shipment from a research facility to a secure location. The official manifest listed electronic equipment, but Russell had been in the service long enough to recognize when he was moving something that didn't officially exist. Whatever it was valuable enough for Reynolds to orchestrate an elaborate scheme to get to it. Valuable enough to turn Russell's wife against him, to manipulate his son. Russell discovered that Reynolds had been dishonorably discharged from the Marines 5 years earlier for selling classified information. His brothers had all left their respective branches under similar clouds. Now, they operated in the shadowy world between legitimate security work and outright mercenary activities. What troubled Russell most was Travis's involvement. The boy was withdrawn, constantly checking his phone, jumping when Russell entered a room. One afternoon, Russell came home early to find Travis hurriedly closing his laptop. "School project?" Russell asked. "Yeah," Travis mumbled, not meeting his eyes. That night, Russell accessed Travis's laptop remotely. What he found chilled him. Reynolds had been messaging Travis for months, at first posing as a friend, then as a mentor, gradually extracting information about Russell's schedule, his habits, his deployment details. Recently, the messages had taken a darker turn, with thinly veiled threats toward Travis and Russell if the boy didn't cooperate. Russell's jaw clenched as he read the latest exchange. "Reynolds, your mom and I need that info about your dad's next convoy route. It's important." "Travis, I told you, he doesn't talk about work with me." "Reynolds, ask him. Make up a school project. Say you're proud of him. Whatever works. We need to know." "Travis, what are you going to do?" "Reynolds, nothing bad if everything goes according to plan. But if it doesn't, remember what I told you about what happens to families of soldiers who get in our way." Russell closed the laptop, his decision made. Reynolds and his brothers were planning something during his next convoy duty, likely an ambush to steal whatever they were transporting. They were using Travis as their informant, threatening him to ensure his cooperation. The next morning, Russell made a call to his commanding officer, requesting a meeting off base. Major Harvey Wilson had known Russell for 12 years, through 3 combat tours. "What's on your mind, Boyd?" he asked as they sat in a diner 20 miles from the base. "Need to talk about the next transport duty," Russell said quietly. "I think there may be a security breach." Wilson's expression hardened. "What kind of breach?" "Personal," Russell replied. "My wife's been seeing someone. Ex-Marine named Liam Reynolds." Wilson's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. "Reynolds? You're sure?" Russell nodded. "He's been asking questions about my deployment schedules, convoy routes. Getting to my son, too." Wilson set his cup down carefully. "Reynolds and his brothers have been on our radar. They're suspected of hitting military shipments in 3 states, but we've never been able to prove it. If he's targeting your convoy." He paused. "What exactly does he know?" "That's what I need to find out," Russell said. "And then I need your help to set a trap." Chapter 3. The Warning. The plan was simple but risky. Russell would feed Travis carefully selected information about an upcoming convoy, information that would seem valuable to Reynolds, but would actually lead him and his brothers into a military police ambush. Russell hated using his son this way, but he needed to know how deep Travis was involved, whether the boy was a willing participant or a victim of manipulation and threats. He casually mentioned the convoy to Travis over breakfast. "Big day, next Friday. Escorting some fancy new tech to Fort Benning." Travis's spoon froze halfway to his mouth. "What kind of tech?" "Can't say much," Russell said, watching his son closely. "But it's important enough that I'll be running point. Route 29 most of the way. Standard stuff." Travis nodded, his eyes darting to his phone beside his plate. That night, Russell monitored Travis's messages to Reynolds. "Travis, Dad's leading a convoy next Friday. Route 29 to Fort Benning. He says it's fancy new tech." "Reynolds, good work. Any details on timing or security arrangements?" "Travis, he didn't say, but he's running point whatever that means." "Reynolds, it means he's in the lead vehicle." "Perfect. Your mom and I appreciate this, Travis. Once this is done, we'll be set. You, me, and your mom can start over somewhere new. Reynolds' response confirmed what Russell suspected. They were planning to hit the convoy, and Adrian was fully complicit. They were even planning to take Travis away afterward. The following day, Russell met with Major Wilson and a small team of trusted officers to finalize their plan. They would set up a decoy convoy while the real shipment took an alternate route. Reynolds and his brothers would find themselves walking into a trap. But that night, everything changed. Russell was in his home office when Travis appeared in the doorway, pale and shaking. "Dad," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need to tell you something." Russell gestured for him to come in, closing the door behind him. "What is it, son?" Travis broke down, tears streaming down his face. "I've been talking to Mom's friend, Liam. He made me tell him things about you, about your work." "I know," Russell said quietly. Travis looked up, shocked. "You know, I've known for a while. I want to see how far it would go, what they were planning." "They're going to hurt you, Dad," Travis said, his voice cracking. "Liam and his brothers. They want whatever you're transporting next week. They made me help them." Russell pulled his son into an embrace. "It's okay. I got a plan. The convoy information I mentioned was fake. We're setting a trap for them." Travis stiffened in his arms. "No, Dad, you don't understand. They know you suspect something. Mom told Liam you've been asking questions. They're changing their plan. They're coming here tonight. They're going to make me call you while you're on patrol, tell you something happened at home, so you'll come back alone." Russell's mind raced. If Reynolds knew about the trap, then the whole operation was compromised. Worse, they were bringing the fight to his home, where Travis was. "When?" Russell demanded. "Tonight. Mom left an hour ago to meet Liam. His brothers are supposed to come here at midnight. I'm supposed to call you at 12:30 after your patrol starts." Russell checked his watch. 11:15 p.m. He had 45 minutes. "Listen to me carefully," Russell said, gripping Travis by the shoulders. "This is what we're going to do." By midnight, Russell had contacted Major Wilson, explaining the change in situation. Then he positioned himself in the shadows of the living room, his service weapon ready. He had sent Travis to hide in the basement panic room he'd installed years ago, with strict instructions not to come out until Russell came for him. At 12:10 a.m., Russell's phone vibrated with a text from his security system. 3 men approaching the back door. Through the camera feed on his phone, he recognized Derek and Cole Reynolds, along with a third man he didn't know. They moved with military precision, checking sight lines, communicating with hand signals. They thought they were dealing with an empty house, expecting Travis to be the only one home. At 12:30, Russell's phone rang. It was Travis. "Go ahead, son," Russell said quietly. "Say the lines like we practiced." Travis's voice shook convincingly. "Dad, Mom's boyfriend says he knows your convoy route. His brothers are waiting to ambush you. They made me call to lure you." "I'm already home, son," Russell whispered, watching the 3 men enter through the back door, weapons drawn. There was silence on the line as Travis processed what this meant. The intruders never saw Russell. 15 years of special operations had taught him patience, precision, and the ability to move like a ghost. The first man went down silently, a precise strike rendering him unconscious. The second turned just in time to see Russell before a well-placed blow incapacitated him. The third, Cole Reynolds, managed to raise his weapon, but Russell was faster, disarming him with a brutal efficiency that left Cole's arm broken in 2 places. Within minutes, all 3 were zip-tied and unconscious on the living room floor. Russell called Major Wilson. "Situation contained," he reported. 3 suspects in custody at my residence. No casualties." He paused. "But Reynolds and my wife are still out there, and they know something's wrong when their team doesn't report in." "Stay put," Wilson ordered. "We've got patrols looking for Reynolds now. We'll find him." After ending the call, Russell went to the basement to get Travis. The boy was huddled in the panic room, shaking. "It's over," Russell assured him. "You're safe." "What about Mom?" Travis asked, his voice small. Russell's expression hardened. "Your mother made her choice." As they climbed the stairs back to the main floor, Travis stopped suddenly. "Dad, there's something else I need to tell you." Before he could continue, Russell's phone rang. It was Major Wilson. Boyd, we got a problem. Reynolds escaped our patrol. He's in the wind, and we can't locate your wife either. Russell looked at Travis, whose face had gone pale. What is it, son? He asked, his voice gentle despite the urgency of the situation. Mom and Liam, Travis said. They have a place. A cabin in the mountains. She took me there once, made me promise not to tell you. Said it was her special place where she could think. Russell nodded, his jaw tight. Can you remember how to get there? As Travis described the location, Russell knew the real battle was just beginning. Reynolds would be desperate now. His brothers captured, his plan in ruins. A desperate man was unpredictable, dangerous. We need to go, Russell said, helping Travis to his feet. Right now. Chapter 4. Hunting Grounds. The mountain roads were treacherous in the pre-dawn darkness. Russell drove with methodical precision, his mind calculating contingencies. Beside him, Travis directed their route toward the secluded cabin where Adrian and Reynolds had created their secret retreat. How long have you known about this place? Russell asked, his voice carefully neutral. Travis stared out the window at the passing trees. Mom started taking me there about 6 months ago. At first, she said it was just for hiking trips. Then Liam started showing up. He paused. I didn't want to go anymore after that, but she insisted. So we needed to bond with him. Russell's hands tightened on the steering wheel. And what did Liam talk to you about during these trips? At first, normal stuff. Sports, school. Then he started asking about you. When you'd call from deployment, what you would talk about. He made it seem like he just wanted to know what kind of father you were. Travis's voice cracked. I didn't realize what he was doing until he started threatening me. Threatening how? He showed me pictures of guys he said crossed him. Said one word from him, and the same could happen to you. Or to me. Travis looked down at his hands. That's when I started telling him things. I'm sorry, Dad. This isn't on you, Russell said firmly. Reynolds is a predator. He targeted you because of me. None of this is your fault. As they approached the turnoff of the cabin, Russell killed the headlights and pulled over. Stay in the car, he instructed, checking his weapon. Lock the doors. If anyone but me approaches, use this. He handed Travis a small canister. Pepper spray. Aim for the eyes, then run into the woods. Head downhill, find a road. What are you going to do? Travis asked, fear evident in his voice. Russell's expression was unreadable. Reconnaissance first. I need to know what we're dealing with. The cabin sat in a small clearing, a rustic 2-story structure with a wraparound porch. A black SUV was parked outside, Reynolds' vehicle. Russell circled the perimeter, moving silently through the underbrush. Through a window, he could see Adrian pacing in the main room, her face etched with worry. Reynolds was nowhere in sight. Russell positioned himself near the back door, listening. Voices drifted through an open window. They should have called by now, Adrian was saying, her voice tight with panic. Something went wrong. Reynolds' voice, controlled but tense. Travis was supposed to make the call at 12:30. What if Russell figured it out? What if he hurt Travis? Reynolds' laugh was cold. Your husband's a soldier, not a monster. He wouldn't hurt his own kid, even if he knew the boy was setting him up. You don't know Russell, Adrian said quietly. Not really. I know enough, Reynolds replied. I know he's predictable, follows orders, plays by the rules. That's why this was supposed to work. So what now? Adrian asked. Now we adapt. My brothers will handle themselves if they got caught. They know the drill. Say nothing. Ask for a lawyer. By the time the military sorts through the red tape, we'll be long gone. And the money? The buyers are expecting delivery next week. We'll have to tell them there's been a delay. Once things cool down, we can still make this work. The intel you provided about the classified tech is too valuable to pass up. Russell had heard enough. Adrian wasn't just having an affair. She was actively selling military secrets to Reynolds, who was apparently planning to sell them to foreign buyers. This wasn't just about a convoy ambush anymore. It was treason. He was preparing to move when he felt, rather than heard, someone approach from behind. He turned just as a heavy blow struck the side of his head, sending him sprawling. Cole Reynolds stood over him, blood caking the side of his face, but very much not in custody. Looking for someone, Boyd? Russell's vision swam as he tried to reach for his weapon, but a kick sent it skittering away into the underbrush. Zip ties aren't much of a challenge for guys with our training, Cole said, hauling Russell to his feet. Though I gotta admit, you got the drop on us at your house. Wasn't expecting you to be home. He marched Russell toward the cabin at gunpoint. Liam, look what I found prowling around outside. The cabin door burst open, and Liam Reynolds emerged, his expression shifting from surprise to cold calculation at the sight of Russell. Boyd, I should have known you'd track us here. He glanced past Russell toward the dark woods. Where's the boy? Safe, Russell replied, his voice steady despite the throbbing in his head. Far away from you. Reynolds studied him for a moment, then nodded to Cole. Bring him inside. We need to have a chat. Adrienne's face went pale when she saw Russell, her hand flying to her mouth. Russell, how did you? Travis told me about your little love nest, Russell said, his voice devoid of emotion. Seems like there's a lot you've been keeping from me, Adrienne. Reynolds shoved Russell into a chair, securing his hands behind him with more zip ties. Family reunion. How touching. You won't get away with this, Russell said calmly. Major Wilson knows I'm here. If I don't check in within the hour, this place will be swarming with MPs. Reynolds laughed. Nice try, Boyd. We both know Special Forces operators like you don't call for backup that easily. You came alone, hoping to play hero. He leaned in close. Where's the boy, really? Is he outside? In your car. Russell maintained eye contact, his expression neutral. He's with Wilson, giving a full statement about everything you've done. The threats, the manipulation, the planned ambush. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Reynolds' face. He's lying, Adrienne said quickly. Travis wouldn't betray us like that. Betray you? Russell's laugh was bitter. That's rich, coming from a woman who's been selling military secrets while her husband was deployed. Reynolds straightened up, his composure returning. It doesn't matter. We're leaving tonight, with or without the boy. The buyers are still interested in what we can provide. The intelligence Adrienne stole for you is already compromised, Russell said. Wilson's team is changing all the security protocols as we speak. There will be other opportunities, Reynolds replied with a cold smile. Your wife has been very helpful in establishing connections within base. We just need to get to our extraction point. Cole moved to the window, peering out into the darkness. Speaking of which, we should move. Dawn's coming soon. Reynolds nodded. Pack the essentials. We're out in 5. As Reynolds and Cole began gathering equipment, Adrienne approached Russell, her eyes pleading. Russell, please, she whispered. This got out of hand. I never meant for things to go this far. Russell looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since entering the cabin. The woman he had loved, the mother of his child, now a stranger willing to betray not just her marriage vows, but her country. When did you stop loving me, Adrienne? He asked quietly. Her eyes dropped. I don't know. Maybe after your second deployment, when you came back, different, distant. Liam made me feel seen, appreciated. And selling military secrets? Was that also about feeling appreciated? She flinched. The money was good. We were drowning in debt after my father's medical bills. Liam said nobody would get hurt. People always get hurt, Adrienne. That's the one guarantee in this life. A noise outside drew everyone's attention. Reynolds moved to the window, gun raised. What was that? He demanded. Before anyone could answer, the cabin was plunged into darkness as the power was cut. Cole, check the breaker, Reynolds commanded, switching on a tactical flashlight. On it, Cole replied, moving toward the back door. The moment Cole opened the door, a canister came flying through, bouncing across the floor before erupting in a cloud of tear gas. Russell, anticipating the attack, had already started working on his restraints, dislocating his thumb to slip one hand free. As Reynolds and Adrienne began coughing and staggering in the gas, Russell lunged forward, tackling Reynolds to the ground. The two men fought brutally in the darkness, both trained killers with years of combat experience. Reynolds landed a powerful blow to Russell's kidneys, but Russell countered with an elbow strike that shattered Reynolds' nose. Outside, Cole's shout was cut short by the sound of a scuffle, followed by silence. Russell gained the upper hand, pinning Reynolds beneath him. It's over, he growled, his hand closing around Reynolds' throat. Not quite, Reynolds gasped, his hand reaching for something in his waistband. Russell saw the glint of a blade too late. The knife slashed across his ribs, cutting deep. He rolled away, hand pressed to the wound as Reynolds staggered to his feet. "You're good, Boyd," Reynolds admitted, wiping blood from his face. "But I didn't survive 3 tours in Fallujah by playing fair." Before Reynolds could advance, the front door burst open and armed military police poured in, weapons trained on Reynolds. "Drop the weapon. On the ground now," their leader shouted. Reynolds, calculating his odds, slowly lowered the knife and knelt with his hands behind his head. As the MPs secured Reynolds and the still coughing Adrian, Major Wilson entered, helping Russell to his feet. "Cutting a bit close, weren't you?" Russell said through gritted teeth, blood seeping between his fingers. Wilson grimaced. "Your son called it in. Smart kid. Decided not to stay in the car like you told him." Russell looked past Wilson to where Travis stood in the doorway, his young face a mixture of relief and trauma. "Travis," Russell called. "You okay?" Travis nodded, unable to speak as he watched his mother being handcuffed. "Medic!" Wilson shouted, noticing Russell's wound. "We need a medic here." As a medic approached to treat him, Russell kept his eyes on Travis. "It's going to be okay, son," he said, though he wasn't sure himself if that was true. Chapter 5. Broken Trust. The military hospital was quiet at 3 in the morning. Russell sat on the edge of his bed, ignoring the pain from his 20 stitches as he read through the preliminary report Wilson had brought him. Liam and Cole Reynolds were in military custody, facing charges of conspiracy, attempted murder of a federal officer, espionage, and a dozen other violations. Derek Reynolds and the third man from Russell's house were also in custody. Adrian was being held as a material witness and co-conspirator. "How's Travis holding up?" Russell asked, looking up from the report. Wilson sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Child Services has him temporarily. He's been asking for you. The psychologist says he's in shock, but physically he's unharmed." Russell nodded, his jaw tight. "I want him back with me as soon as possible." "You'll need to give a full statement first," Wilson said. "The JAG office has questions about those 3 men in your house. Self-defense seems clear, but they need details." "They came to kill me, Wilson. What more do they need to know? It's procedure, you know that. Especially given the severity of their injuries." Wilson paused. "Cole Reynolds claims you broke his arm after he was already subdued." Russell's expression didn't change. "He's lying. He resisted, threatened my son. I used necessary force to protect my home." Wilson studied him for a moment. "The doctors say Cole's arm was broken in 3 places. His hand may never fully recover. Are you here as my friend or as part of the investigation?" "Both," Wilson admitted. "I need to know what happened, Russell. The full story." Russell set the report aside. "They came into my home armed, planning to use my son as bait to lure me to my death. They were working with my wife to steal classified technology and sell it to foreign buyers. What happened in my house was the minimal force required to ensure my son's safety." Wilson held his gaze before finally nodding. "I'll make sure that's clear in my report." He stood to leave, then hesitated. "There's something else you should know. Reynolds isn't talking, but Adrian is. She's offering information in exchange for leniency." "What kind of information?" "Names of the buyers. Details about other operations Reynolds and his brothers were involved in." "And?" Wilson looked uncomfortable. "She's claiming she was coerced. Says Reynolds threatened her and Travis if she didn't cooperate." Russell's laugh was hollow. "She took my son to their love nest for months. She stole classified information from my personal files. That sound like coercion to you?" "No," Wilson admitted. "But her lawyer is spinning a compelling narrative. Vulnerable military wife, lonely during husband's deployments, manipulated by a predatory ex-soldier. Will it work?" Russell asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "It might reduce her sentence, but she's still looking at serious time." Wilson headed for the door. "Get some rest. I'll have Travis brought here tomorrow once your statement is processed." After Wilson left, Russell sat in the darkened hospital room, thinking about Travis. The boy had watched his mother betraying his father, had been threatened and manipulated by Reynolds, and now had witnessed violence most adults never experienced. How did someone come back from that kind of trauma? The next morning, a JAG officer took Russell's statement. He recounted the events clinically, unemotionally, presenting the facts without embellishment. The officer seemed satisfied, informing Russell that based on the evidence and Major Wilson's recommendation, no charges will be filed regarding the confrontation in his home. By afternoon, Travis arrived, escorted by a social worker. The boy looked smaller somehow, diminished by the events of the past days. "Dad," he said, his voice breaking as Russell embraced him. "I'm here," Russell assured him. "I've got you." The social worker gave them privacy, and for a while, they just sat together in silence. Finally, Travis spoke. "Is Mom going to prison?" Russell considered his words carefully. "Yes. What she did was very serious." "Because of the affair?" "No. Because she and Reynolds were stealing military secrets to sell to other countries. That's called treason, and it's one of the most serious crimes there is." Travis nodded, processing this. "She said she did it for us, for a better life." Russell felt anger flare, but kept his voice steady. "That was a lie, Travis. We didn't need money that badly. She did it for herself and for Reynolds. What's going to happen to me?" "You'll stay with me," Russell said firmly. "We'll get through this together." Travis looked down at his hands. "I told them things about you, about your work. I helped them. You were threatened and manipulated by adults who should have protected you. None of this is your fault. But if I had told you sooner, then Reynolds might have hurt you," Russell interrupted. "You survived, Travis. You did what you had to do, and when the moment came, you made the right choice. You warned me. You called Major Wilson when I told you to stay in the car. You saved my life." Tears filled Travis's eyes. "I was so scared." Russell pulled him into another embrace. "I know, but you were brave when it counted." As Travis cried against his shoulder, Russell made a silent vow. Reynolds and his brothers would pay for what they'd done to his son. Adrian would face justice for her betrayal. But that wasn't enough. There were still the buyers, the people willing to purchase stolen American military technology. People who would have benefited from his death and his son's trauma. They would pay too. All of them. 2 weeks later, Russell and Travis moved into a new house on the other side of town. The old house held too many painful memories, and Russell wanted a fresh start for both of them. Travis enrolled in a new school, began seeing a therapist specializing in trauma, and slowly, day by day, showed signs of recovery. Russell returned to duty, though he requested a temporary transfer to base operations while he sorted out his personal life. Wilson arranged it, understanding that Russell needed time to be there for Travis. The legal proceedings moved forward. Liam and his brothers were denied bail, deemed flight risks due to their connections overseas. Adrienne's cooperation earned her a separate detention facility, but her plea deal was still being negotiated. Russell visited her once, a month after the arrest. She sat across from him in the visitation room, the orange jumpsuit making her look pale and drawn. "Thank you for coming," she said. "How's Travis?" "Healing," Russell replied. "No thanks to you." She flinched. "I never wanted him involved. That was Liam's idea, but you allowed it. You watched our son being threatened and manipulated, and you did nothing." "I was in too deep by then," she said, her eyes pleading. "Liam had evidence of my involvement. If I tried to back out, he would have exposed me. So you chose him over your own son's safety." She looked away. "I made terrible choices. I know that. Your lawyer says you're cooperating." Naming names. She nodded. "It's the only way to reduce my sentence. I know I'm going to prison. Russell, I just don't want to spend the rest of my life there." "Who were the buyers?" Russell asked, his voice calm despite the rage simmering beneath the surface. "My lawyer advised me not to discuss case details with anyone," she said carefully. Russell leaned forward. "I'm not asking as part of the case, Adrian. I'm asking as the man whose life you tried to destroy. I deserve to know who was willing to pay for my death." She hesitated, then sighed. "A consortium. 3 major players. A Russian arms dealer named Petrov, a Chinese technology firm operating through shell companies, and a domestic contractor trying to get ahead on the bidding for next-gen military tech." "Names," Russell pressed. "I can't, Russell. If we got back that I told you." She shuddered. "These people have long reaches, even into prisons." Russell sat back, his expression unreadable. You should have thought about dangerous associates before you got into bed with Reynolds. I know you'll never forgive me, she said quietly. But please, for Travis's sake, don't let your anger consume you. He needs his father. Don't you dare use our son to manipulate me, Russell said, his voice deadly quiet. You lost that right when you put his life at risk. He stood to leave, but Adrienne called after him. Russell, wait. There's something else you should know. She lowered her voice. Reynolds had other partners, people even he was afraid of. They don't know I've given up his name, but if they find out, they might come looking to tie up loose ends. Are you saying my son is still in danger? She nodded, her eyes fearful. Be careful. Watch over him. As Russell left the detention center, he knew Adrienne was trying to manipulate him again, using concern for Travis to gain his sympathy. But what if there was truth to her warning? Reynolds' operation had seemed sophisticated, well-funded. There could easily be other players in the shadows, people who had invested in the intelligence Adrienne and Reynolds were selling, people who might not appreciate the operation being shut down. Chapter 6. Ghosts and Shadows. Russell established new routines for himself and Travis, carefully designed to appear normal while incorporating security measures. Different routes to school each day, regular check-ins, a new security system of the house. Travis didn't complain. The recent events had made him hyper-vigilant, aware of threats in a way no 14-year-old should be. 3 months passed without incident. The Reynolds brothers remained in custody, awaiting trial. Adrienne accepted a plea deal, 15 years in exchange for her full cooperation. The news reported the disruption of an espionage ring targeting military technology, but the details remained classified. Russell kept digging. Using contacts from his special forces days, calling in favors, he began mapping the network behind Reynolds' operation. Adrienne had mentioned 3 main buyers. Russell identified 2. Viktor Petrov, a Russian arms dealer operating through proxies in Eastern Europe, and Tech Fusion, a Chinese firm with ties to their military. The third buyer, the domestic contractor, proved more elusive. Russell suspected it was one of the major defense corporations, but there were dozens of possibilities, all with the resources and motivation to acquire advanced military technology through back channels. Wilson provided what information he could without compromising the ongoing investigation. The FBI has taken over that aspect, he told Russell during one of their regular meetings. They're following money trails, communications. It's slow work. Too slow, Russell replied. If these people decide to tie up loose ends, Travis could be in danger. We have no evidence they're even aware of Travis's role, Wilson pointed out. As far as most people know, you discovered your wife's affair and the plot through your own investigation. Travis is just a victim in the official narrative. Reynolds knows the truth. So do his brothers. If they talk to the right people. Wilson sighed. I can assign a protective detail if you're really concerned. Russell shook his head. No. More people means more visibility, more opportunities for leaks. We keep this contained. That night, as Russell was checking the security feeds before bed, he noticed a car passing their house for the 3rd time in an hour. Nothing obvious, a dark sedan with tinted windows, moving at legal speed. But Russell recognized surveillance when he saw it. He activated a secondary security protocol on his phone, sending the car's license plate to a private investigator he'd hired, former Army intelligence, someone who knew how to be discreet. The response came an hour later. The car was registered to a shell company tied to Meridian Defense Solutions, one of the largest military contractors in the country. The third buyer. They had found him. Russell didn't sleep that night, instead planning contingencies. He couldn't go to the authorities without revealing that he'd been conducting his own unauthorized investigation. Besides, companies like Meridian had former generals on their boards, political connections at the highest levels. The system might not protect him or Travis if Meridian decided they were liabilities. The next morning, he called Travis's school to report him sick, then took him to a cabin owned by a former teammate, 50 miles away in the mountains. "What's going on, Dad?" Travis asked as they drove, clearly unsettled by the sudden trip. "Just being cautious," Russell replied. "Remember how we talked about situations requiring extra security?" Travis nodded. his expression serious beyond his years. Is it because of Mom or Liam? In a way, some people connected to them might be watching us. This is just temporary until I can resolve the situation. At the cabin, Russell set up security measures while Travis settled in. The place was remote, defensible, stocked with supplies. His teammate had used it as a safe house during his private security days. "You'll stay here with Brian," Russell explained, introducing Travis to his former teammate. "He'll keep you safe while I take care of some business in town." "You're leaving?" Travis asked, panic edging into his voice. Russell knelt to meet his son's eyes. "Just for a few days. Brian is one of the best soldiers I ever served with. You'll be safer with him than with me right now. Why can't we both stay here?" "Because I need to make sure these people understand that coming after my family is a mistake they won't live to repeat." Travis studied his father's face. "You're going after them, aren't you? The people Mom and Liam were working for." Russell considered lying, then decided against it. Travis had seen too much deception already. "Yes, they need to understand there are consequences." "Will you kill them?" Travis asked, his voice small but steady. Russell placed his hands on his son's shoulders. "I'm going to do whatever is necessary to ensure you're safe. Not just tomorrow or next week, but for good. Can you trust me on this?" After a long moment, Travis nodded. Back in the city, Russell began his operation methodically. The PI had identified the surveillance team as private security contractors working for Meridian Defense Solutions. For men, rotating in shifts, keeping eyes on Russell's house and tracking his movements. Rather than avoiding them, Russell let them follow him, establishing a predictable pattern while gathering information on their procedures. They were professionals, but they weren't special forces. They hadn't been trained to watch for the kind of counter-surveillance techniques Russell employed. Within 3 days, he had identified their command structure, their communications protocols, and most importantly, the location of their local operations center, a nondescript office building owned by another Meridian shell company. On the 4th night, Russell made his move. Dressed in black tactical gear, he accessed the building through a maintenance entrance, bypassing the security system using techniques honed through years of covert operations. The night security guard never saw him coming. A quick, silent takedown with no permanent damage. In the security office, Russell accessed the computer system, downloading files, communications logs, anything that might identify who at Meridian had authorized the operation against him and his family. He found what he needed in an encrypted folder: operation reports, surveillance photos of him and Travis, and most damning of all, communications with someone identified only as director authorizing containment protocols if Russell showed signs of investigating Meridian's connection to Reynolds. Containment protocols. Russell knew what that meant in their world. His and Travis's lives had been conditionally forfeit, pending Meridian's assessment of the threat they posed. As he was preparing to leave, voices in the hallway alerted him to the arrival of the night shift security team. 2 men, from the sound of their conversation, coming to relieve the guard he'd incapacitated. Russell could have slipped away unnoticed. That would have been the prudent move. But these men worked for the organization threatening his son. Prudence wasn't his priority anymore. The security team entered the office to find their colleague unconscious and Russell waiting in the shadows. Their training kicked in. Both reached for their weapons, but Russell was already moving, a ghost in the darkness. The first man went down with a crushed larynx, gasping soundlessly on the floor. The second managed to draw his gun before Russell's strike dislocated his shoulder and sent the weapon clattering away. A precise blow to the temple rendered him unconscious. Russell gathered the fallen weapons, along with the data he'd downloaded, and exited the building as silently as he'd entered. No alarms, no witnesses, nothing to indicate this was anything more than a random break-in. But Russell had left something behind. A small card with a simple message tucked into the pocket of the man with the crushed larynx. It read, "Tell Meridian's director that Russell Boyd sends his regards." This was a warning. There won't be a second one. The next morning, Russell called a number he'd found in the encrypted files. It rang 3 times before being answered. Security operations, a clipped voice stated. "I need to speak with Director Hargrove," Russell said. "Tell him it's Russell Boyd, and this conversation will determine whether his security team lives through the night. A pause, then, hold, please. 2 minutes later, a deeper voice came on the line. Mr. Boyd, you've been busy. Your surveillance team is sloppy, Director Hargrove. Your security protocols are outdated, and your communication security is compromised. I have everything: the connection to Reynolds, the authorization for containment protocols against me and my son. That's quite an accusation, Hargrove replied, his tone measured. Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? I know exactly who I'm dealing with, Russell said. The question is whether you understand who you're dealing with. I'm not some civilian you can intimidate or eliminate. I've spent 15 years learning how to hunt and kill people far more dangerous than corporate executives playing at espionage. What do you want, Boyd? A meeting. Just you and me. We need to come to an understanding about my family's continued safety and your company's continued existence. A long pause followed. The Renaissance Hotel. Downtown. Room 1242. 1 hour. I'll be there, Russell said. And Hargrove, if this is a setup, what I did to your security team will seem merciful compared to what comes next. He hung up, checking his weapons one last time before heading to the meeting that would determine whether the threat to Travis ended today or whether Russell would need to dismantle Meridian Defense Solutions piece by bloody piece. Chapter 7. Calculated Risks. The Renaissance Hotel lobby bustled with business travelers and tourists, none noticing the focused intensity of the man who entered at precisely 10 a.m. Russell had arrived 30 minutes early, surveilling the building's entrances and exits, noting security camera placements, identifying hotel staff versus potential operatives. He took the service elevator to the 11th floor, then used the stairs to approach room 1242 from an unexpected direction. The hallway was clear, no obvious security, no housekeeping carts that might conceal personnel. Either Hargrove was supremely confident, or this was an elaborate trap. Russell knocked 3 times, then stepped to the side of the door, hand resting on the concealed weapon at his waist. "It's open," came a voice from inside. Russell entered cautiously, scanning the room in one practice sweep. A suite, expensively furnished. A man in his 60s sat in an armchair by the window, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. No obvious weapons, no visible security. "Mr. Boyd," the man said, gesturing to the chair opposite him. "I'm Thomas Hargrove. I believe we have matters to discuss." Russell remained standing. "Search protocols first. I'll check you, you check me, then we talk." Hargrove raised an eyebrow, but stood, allowing Russell to conduct a thorough pat-down. Finding no weapons, Russell submitted to the same. Only then did he take the offered seat. "I must admit," Hargrove said, returning to his chair, "your methods are direct. Breaking into one of our facilities, assaulting our personnel. Your personnel were surveilling my home, monitoring my child," Russell replied coldly. "Consider yourselves fortunate I didn't employ more permanent solutions." Hargrove studied him. "You're everything your file suggested. Efficient, ruthless when necessary, protective of your own. My file. Meridian does its homework, Mr. Boyd. When Liam Reynolds approached us with his proposal, we conducted thorough background checks on everyone involved, including you." "Reynolds approached you," Russell said. "Not the other way around." "Correct. He claimed to have access to next-generation military technology through his relationship with your wife. We expressed interest, naturally. Such acquisitions can save years of R&D. Industrial espionage," Russell clarified. "Treason." Hargrove waved a dismissive hand. "Corporate intelligence gathering. And as for treason, Meridian is an American company. The technology would have remained in American hands, just under our patents rather than the government's. And the Russian and Chinese buyers Reynolds was also dealing with." A flicker of surprise crossed Hargrove's face. If Reynolds was negotiating with foreign entities, that was not part of our arrangement. "Your arrangement involved stealing classified technology and eliminating anyone who got in your way," Russell said, leaning forward. "Including me. Including my 14-year-old son." "A misunderstanding," Hargrove said smoothly. "The containment protocols were a contingency, not an active directive. Standard procedure when dealing with potential security risks." I have the communications, Hargrove. I know the surveillance team was authorized to contain us if necessary. Only if you demonstrated knowledge of Meridian's involvement, Hargrove admitted, which, unfortunately, you now have. The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly. Russell tensed, preparing for a hidden attack. Relax, Mr. Boyd, Hargrove said, noting his reaction. If I wanted you eliminated, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Then what do you want? Hargrove sighed, suddenly looking older. Meridian made a miscalculation partnering with Reynolds. His operation was sloppier than we anticipated, his methods more brutal than we would have sanctioned. When we learned he was threatening a child, your son, I personally initiated a review of our involvement. You expect me to believe you developed a conscience? I expect you to understand business, Mr. Boyd. Dead soldiers and traumatized children create investigations, media attention, political fallout. Bad for the bottom line. Russell studied the man, searching for deception. So you're cutting ties with Reynolds? We already have. All communications ceased when he was arrested. As far as Meridian is concerned, we never had contact with him. And my family? The surveillance? A precaution that is no longer necessary, Hargrove said. You have my word that Meridian will maintain its distance from you and your son. Russell laughed humorlessly. Your word means nothing to me. I need guarantees, such as complete cessation of all surveillance, a signed confession detailing Meridian's involvement with Reynolds, to be held by my attorney and released if anything happens to me or my son, and financial compensation for the trauma your company helped inflict on my family. Hargrove considered this. The surveillance can end immediately. The confession is out of the question, too much liability. As for compensation, he paused. What figure did you have in mind? $2 million. In a trust for my son. Extortion, Mr. Boyd. Restitution, Russell corrected. A small price for your company to avoid a scandal that would tank your stock and end your government contracts. Hargrove was silent for a long moment, his expression calculating. Finally, he nodded. $1 million. Transferred to a trust of your choosing. In exchange for your silence regarding Meridian's tangential connection to this unfortunate affair. And what assurance do I have that once I leave this room, you won't simply decide to eliminate the problem permanently? Hargrove reached into his jacket, moving slowly to avoid alarming Russell, and withdrew a thumb drive. This contains evidence of Meridian's involvement in 3 other questionable acquisitions over the past decade. If anything happens to you or your son, this information becomes public. Mutually assured destruction, Mr. Boyd. The foundation of any lasting peace. Russell took the drive, considering the offer. He didn't trust Hargrove or Meridian, but the arrangement made a certain cold, pragmatic sense. Corporations like Meridian operated on risk assessment. If the risk of eliminating Russell outweighed the risk of paying him off, they would choose the latter. One more condition, Russell said. Reynolds and his brothers. I want them to understand that any deal they might have had with Meridian is finished. That if they mention your company's name, even once, they won't live to see trial. Hargrove's smile was thin. That could be arranged. Prison populations can be unpredictable. Not good enough, Russell replied. I want to deliver the message personally. That would be highly irregular. They're in military custody, awaiting trial on federal charges. You have the connections to make it happen, Russell said. One visit, supervised if necessary. Hargrove studied him, then nodded slowly. I'll make the arrangements. But understand this, Mr. Boyd. If you harm Reynolds while visiting him, our agreement is void. I don't need to harm him, Russell said. I just need him to understand the consequences of threatening my family. The meeting concluded with handshakes and the exchange of secure contact information. Russell left the hotel the same way he'd entered, watchful for any sign of surveillance or a double cross. There was none. 2 days later, a notification on his secure phone indicated that $1 million had been transferred to a newly created trust in Travis's name. The same day, he received visitor authorization for the military detention facility where Liam Reynolds was being held. Russell returned to the mountain cabin to check on Travis before his visit to Reynolds. The boy was doing better under Brian's watchful, sleeping through the night, spending time outdoors, gradually regaining the confidence that Reynolds had stolen from him. Is it over? Travis asked when Russell told him they could return home soon. Almost, Russell replied. There's one more piece to take care of. Then we can start rebuilding. Mom's preliminary hearing is next week, Travis said quietly. Her lawyer called. They want me to testify. Russell froze. Testify about what? About Liam. How he threatened me. Made me do things. Travis looked down. They think it will help Mom's case if I tell the court she was threatened too. Was she? Russell asked carefully. Did you ever see Reynolds threaten your mother the way he threatened you? Travis was silent for a long moment. No, he finally admitted. She seemed happy with him, until everything fell apart. Russell placed a hand on his son's shoulder. You don't have to testify if you don't want to. And if you do, you only tell the truth. What you saw, what you experienced. Nothing more, nothing less. Travis nodded, relief evident in his eyes. I just want it to be over. It will be, Russell promised. Sooner than you think. The military detention facility was a stark, imposing structure of concrete and steel. Russell was searched, scanned, and escorted through multiple security checkpoints before being led to a visitation room. Liam Reynolds was already seated at a steel table, hands cuffed to a ring bolted to its surface. He looked up as Russell entered, surprise quickly masked by a smirk. Boyd, didn't expect to see you here. I wanted to see you face to face, Russell said, taking the seat opposite him, to deliver a message. Reynolds leaned back as far as his restraints allowed. Let me guess. You're here to tell me how I ruined your life, destroyed your marriage, maybe threatened a little prison justice. No, Russell replied calmly. I'm here to thank you. Reynolds blinked, clearly thrown by the response. Thank me? For what? For showing me who my wife really was. For exposing weaknesses in my family that I can now address. For teaching my son a valuable lesson about trust and betrayal that will serve him well in life. You're welcome, Reynolds said sarcastically. Anything else? Yes. I'm also here to inform you that Meridian Defense has terminated your arrangement. The color drained from Reynolds' face. I don't know what you're talking about. Save it, Reynolds. I've seen the communications, the transfers, everything. Thomas Hargrove sends his regrets, but your services are no longer required. You spoke to Hargrove? Reynolds asked, his composure slipping. We came to an understanding. Meridian is walking away from this entire situation, including you and your brothers. Reynolds leaned forward, lowering his voice. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Boyd. Meridian isn't just some defense contractor. They've got operations globally, connections to intelligence agencies. If Hargrove feels threatened, Hargrove isn't the one you should be worried about, Russell interrupted. I am. You? Reynolds laughed, but there was no humor in it. What are you going to do from out there while I'm in here? Russell smiled, and something in that expression made Reynolds flinch. Let me be perfectly clear, Reynolds. You threatened my son. You tried to have me killed. There is no prison secure enough to protect you from what's coming if you ever mention my family again. Is that a threat, Boyd? Because I could have the MPs in here right now. It's not a threat, Russell replied calmly. It's a promise. From one professional to another. If any harm comes to my son, any harm at all, I will hold you personally responsible. And you know what I'm capable of. Reynolds studied him, the cockiness fading from his expression. What do you want from me? 3 things. First, you never mentioned Travis in your testimony. Not his name, not his involvement, nothing. As far as you're concerned, he doesn't exist. And the other 2? Second, you make it clear to the prosecution that Adrian was a willing participant in your operation. No coercion, no threats. She betrayed her country and her family by choice. Reynolds smiled thinly. Throwing your wife under the bus? Cold, boy. She stopped being my wife the moment she put our son in danger, Russell replied. And third, you forget anything you know about Meridian's involvement. When asked who the domestic buyer was, you don't remember, you don't know, you never had that information. And why would I do any of this for you? Russell leaned forward. Because if you don't, recordings of your conversations with Adrian planning my death will find their way to certain inmates with particular feelings about people who target soldiers' families. The kind of inmates who can reach you no matter which facility they transfer you to. Reynolds' jaw tightened. You're bluffing. Those recordings would incriminate your wife, too. Do I look like I care about protecting Adrian at this point? Russell asked. She made her choice. Now you make yours. The two men stared at each other across the table, a silent battle of wills. Finally, Reynolds looked away. Fine, he muttered. I'll keep the kid out of it, and I'll tell the truth about your wife's involvement. But Meridian is more dangerous than you realize, Boyd. If I start forgetting things they think I know. Leave Meridian to me, Russell said, standing. Focus on surviving the next 20 years in prison. It's going to be harder than you think. As Russell turned to leave, Reynolds called after him. Hey, Boyd, for what it's worth, your kid's got guts. Stood up to me in the end when it counted. You should be proud. Russell paused at the door. I am proud, and that's the only reason you're still breathing. Chapter 8. Broken Pieces. The legal proceedings dragged on for months. Russell attended each hearing, each preliminary motion, watching the system slowly grind toward justice. Travis testified once, a closed session with only the judge and attorneys present. He spoke the truth about Reynolds' threats, about his mother's willing participation, about the night Russell had saved him from the intruders. Liam Reynolds and his brothers accepted plea deals rather than risk trial. 25 years each in federal prison, no possibility of parole for at least 15. The official charges were conspiracy, attempted murder of a federal officer, and espionage. Adrienne's case proved more complicated. With Travis's testimony contradicting her claims of coercion, the prosecution took a harder line. Her attorneys still managed to negotiate a reduced sentence, 12 years, eligible for parole after 8, in exchange for her continued cooperation in identifying other members of Reynolds' network. Throughout the proceedings, Russell maintained his silence about Meridian's involvement. Hargrove kept his end of the bargain. No further surveillance, no attempts to interfere. The trust for Travis remained intact, growing steadily for his future education. Life settled into a new routine. Russell requested and received a transfer to a training position, allowing him more regular hours to be home with Travis. The boy began therapy, working through the trauma of betrayal and manipulation. There were nightmares, anxiety attacks, moments of rage and grief, but gradually, healing began. 6 months after Reynolds' sentencing, Russell received a request from Adrian to visit her in prison. His first instinct was to refuse, but after discussing it with Travis's therapist, he reconsidered. Closure might be beneficial, not just for him, but for his understanding of how to help Travis. The women's detention facility was less imposing than the military prison where Reynolds was held, but the security was just as tight. Adrienne had lost weight, her once-styled hair now pulled back in a simple ponytail. She seemed smaller somehow, diminished by the setting and her circumstances. "Thank you for coming," she said as Russell took his seat across from her. "Why did you want to see me, Adrienne?" She looked down at her hands. "I've had a lot of time to think in here, about the choices I made, the people I hurt. And I wanted to apologize. Not just for the affair, but for everything. For betraying your trust, for putting Travis in danger, for being so blind to what Reynolds really was." Russell studied her, searching for manipulation or deception. He found only exhaustion and regret. "It's too late for apologies," he said finally. "What's done is done." "I know," she admitted. "I don't expect forgiveness. I needed you to know that I understand now. How completely I destroyed everything we had." "Why did you do it?" Russell asked, the question that had haunted him for months. "We had a good life. A family. Was it just the money?" Adrienne was silent for a long moment. "It started as an affair. Simple, selfish. You were gone so much, and when you were home, you were distant. Liam made me feel desired, important." She shook her head. The information came later. Small things at first, your deployment dates, general locations. He paid well, and it seemed harmless. "Harmless," Russell repeated, his voice flat. "I told myself it was," she admitted. "By the time I realized what he was really after, I was in too deep. He had evidence of my involvement. If I'd backed out, I'd have gone to prison anyway. So you decided to help him plan my death instead?" She flinched. I never believed he would actually harm you. I thought it would just be stealing information. Technology, not murder. You knew exactly what he was planning, Adrian. Don't lie to me now. Not after everything. Tears filled her eyes. You're right. I knew, and I did nothing to stop it. I convinced myself it wasn't real, that it would never happen. She wiped her eyes. How is Travis? Healing, Russell said. No thanks to you. Will you let me see him? Just once? Russell's expression hardened. That's his decision, not mine. He's old enough to choose whether he wants contact with you. I won't force him either way. And us? Is there any chance? There is no us, Adrian. There never will be again. You didn't just betray me as a husband. You betrayed me as a soldier, as an American. You put our son in danger. There's no coming back from that. She nodded, accepting this. I understand. I just hope someday Travis can find it in his heart to forgive me, even if you can't. Like I said, that's his choice to make. Russell stood to leave. Goodbye, Adrian. Russell, she called as he turned away. Be careful. Reynolds had other connections, people even he was afraid of, the kind of people who don't forget or forgive. Russell paused. Is that a threat, Adrian? A warning, she said quietly. I've told the FBI everything I know, but Reynolds kept some things compartmentalized. He had a partner, someone he called the Professor. I never met him, but Liam was careful not to cross him. If this professor thinks you're a liability. I can take care of myself, Russell said. And Travis? I know you can, she replied. Just watch your back. Russell left the prison with mixed emotions. Adrian seemed genuinely remorseful, but it changed nothing about the choices she'd made, the damage she'd done. And now there was this new information about the professor, another potential threat to monitor. He called Major Wilson as soon as he reached his car. Adrian mentioned someone in Reynolds' network called the Professor, Russell explained. Someone even Reynolds was cautious around. Has this come up in the investigation? Wilson was silent for a moment. Yes, but it's classified. How did she know about that? Reynolds talked about him, apparently. What do we know? Not much, Wilson admitted. An academic background, likely teaching at a university in the Northeast. Expert in advanced weapons systems, particularly AI integration. We have some electronic communications, but no clear identity. Is he a continuing threat? Honestly, we don't know. The FBI has taken the lead on that aspect. Last I heard, they had narrowed it down to 3 or 4 suspects, all with the right expertise and connections. Russell processed this. I need to know if he's a threat to Travis. I'll make some calls, Wilson promised. See what I can find out. In the meantime, stay alert. After ending the call, Russell sat in his car, thinking through the implications. Just when it seemed they were reaching resolution, a new complication emerged. He hadn't mentioned the professor to Travis, hadn't wanted to give the boy new reasons for anxiety, just as he was beginning to feel safe again. But if this person was as dangerous as Reynolds had implied to Adrian, then Russell needed to prepare. Not just for his own safety, but for Travis's as well. That evening, as Russell was helping Travis with his homework, his secure phone rang. The number was blocked. Boyd. He answered, moving into the other room. It's Hargrove, came the familiar voice. We need to talk. In person. About what? About the professor. Tonight. Same hotel, same room, 1 hour. The call ended before Russell could respond. He stared at the phone, his mind racing. How did Hargrove know about the professor? And why reach out now? Russell arranged for Brian to stay with Travis, explaining only that he had a work emergency. Travis looked worried, but didn't question it. Another sign of the lingering trauma, this constant fear that threats might reemerge at any moment. I won't be long, Russell promised. Brian will stay until I'm back. Standard procedures if anything happens. Travis nodded, their code word for the emergency protocols Russell had established. Routes to safe houses, contact methods, rendezvous points if they were separated. The Renaissance Hotel was quieter this time, the evening crowd thinner. Russell took the same precautions, approaching room 1242 via an indirect route, alert for any sign of an ambush. Hargrove was alone again, looking more haggard than during their previous meeting. Thank you for coming, he said as Russell entered. You mentioned the professor, Russell replied, remaining standing. How do you know that name? Hargrove gestured to a folder on the table between them. Because Meridian has been tracking him for years. He approached us once, offering technology similar to what Reynolds later promised. We declined. Why? His price was too high. Not just money, but access to our defense systems, our contracts with the military. Hargrove shook his head. Even for Meridian, there are lines we won't cross. Russell picked up the folder, scanning its contents. Partial communications, financial traces, surveillance photos, all related to someone identified only as P. Why show me this? Because he's looking for you, Hargrove said. Our monitoring picked up queries in certain networks, people asking questions about Russell Boyd and his son. The pattern matches the professor's methods. And why would Meridian care if he finds me? Self-interest, Hargrove admitted. If he eliminates you, the evidence you hold against us becomes public. And there's another factor. The professor has been trying to infiltrate Meridian for years. If he connects you to us, it gives him leverage he's been seeking. Russell considered this. You're not telling me everything. Hargrove sighed. No, I'm not. The full truth is that the professor was Reynolds' primary backer. The technology Reynolds was trying to acquire wasn't just for Meridian or foreign buyers. It was primarily for the professor's own operation. We were a secondary market, a way for Reynolds to maximize his profit. What operation? We don't know details. Something involving autonomous weapons systems with integrated AI, beyond cutting edge. And now he's cleaning house, Russell concluded, eliminating loose ends like me who might connect him to Reynolds. Precisely, which is why I'm warning you. Russell closed the folder, his decision made. I need everything you have on him. Every scrap of intelligence, every suspected location, every associate. That's not part of our arrangement, Hargrove protested. It is now, Russell said. Unless you'd prefer, I go to the FBI and tell them about Meridian's involvement with Reynolds. I'm sure they'd be very interested, especially with their ongoing investigation into the professor. Hargrove studied him before nodding reluctantly. I'll have a complete file delivered to you. But understand this, Boyd. The professor is not like Reynolds. He's not a soldier or mercenary. He's something altogether more dangerous. What's that? A true believer, Hargrove said. Someone who thinks his work is so important that any price is worth paying, any life worth sacrificing. The most dangerous kind of adversary. Russell left the hotel with a folder, his mind already formulating a plan. For too long, he'd been reactive, responding to threats as they emerged. It was time to take the initiative to end this cycle of danger permanently. The professor had made a critical mistake by searching for Russell. He'd revealed himself, created a trail that could be followed back to its source. And Russell had spent 15 years learning how to follow such trails, how to find people who didn't want to be found. The hunter was about to become the hunted. Chapter 9. The Final Reckoning. The complete file arrived the next morning, a secure digital package delivered by courier. Russell spent hours going through it, methodically building a profile of the man known as the professor. Dr. Elias Chambers, former Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, researcher, dismissed after advocating for autonomous weapons systems beyond ethical guidelines. Current position, tenured professor of advanced robotics at an Ivy League university. Published extensively on neural networks and machine learning applications in weapon systems. More concerning were his connections, former intelligence operatives, black market weapons dealers, military contractors with questionable ethics. A network that spanned continents, all serving Chambers' vision of a revolution in warfare technology. Reynolds had been just one asset in this network, tasked with acquiring specific components that Chambers needed for his prototype system. With Reynolds imprisoned, Chambers was now personally directing efforts to tie up loose ends, including Russell and potentially Travis. Russell's first instinct was to take this information to the FBI, let them handle Chambers through official channels. But the file revealed another complication. Chambers had protectors within the government, former colleagues who believed in his work despite its ethical implications. Any official investigation would trigger warnings, giving Chambers time to disappear. No, this would require a more direct approach. Russell spent the next week in careful preparation. He established secure accommodations for Travis at a military school where the son of another Special Forces operator attended, a place with security protocols designed to protect children of personnel who might be targeted. It's just for a few weeks, Russell explained as he dropped Travis off. Like a special training program. Jason will be there with you. Travis looked skeptical but resigned. Is this about what Mom mentioned? The professor? Russell shouldn't have been surprised that Travis had overheard his conversation with Wilson. The boy had developed keen situational awareness through harsh experience. Yes, Russell admitted. There's one more loose and I need to tie up. Then it's really over. Travis studied his father's face. You're going after him. I'm going to make sure he never comes after us. Travis was quiet for a moment. Just come back, okay? You're all I've got now. Russell pulled his son into a tight embrace. I promise. With Travis secure, Russell traveled to Philadelphia, where Chambers taught at the university. He established surveillance, mapping the professor's routine, identifying vulnerabilities. Chambers was cautious, varied routes, private security, encrypted communications, but not military trained. There were openings if one knew where to look. On the 5th day, Russell identified his opportunity. Chambers had a standing reservation at an exclusive restaurant near campus every Wednesday evening. He dined alone, reviewing papers while he ate, his security detail positioned discreetly at nearby tables. Russell wouldn't confront him there. Too public, too many variables. But he could plant a listening device, gather more intelligence for the final confrontation. The device placement went smoothly. Disguised as a maintenance worker, Russell accessed the restaurant's HVAC system hours before Chambers' arrival, placing a pinhole microphone near his usual table. That evening, listening from a van parked across the street, Russell gained valuable insights. Chambers was speaking with someone on his phone. The Boyd situation is becoming problematic. He's connected to Meridian, somehow. Yes, I understand the risk. The sun remains our best leverage if direct action becomes necessary. 3 days maximum, then we proceed regardless. Russell's blood ran cold. 3 days, and they were still considering using Travis as leverage. The timeline had just accelerated dramatically. Russell abandoned his methodical approach. The next evening, he tracked Chambers to his home, an elegant brownstone in an upscale neighborhood. Security was minimal there. One guard at the entrance, basic electronic surveillance. Chambers apparently believed his anonymous status was protection enough. A mistake Russell would exploit. At 2 a.m., when the neighborhood was silent and dark, Russell disabled the security system and entered through a service entrance. He moved through the house like a ghost, locating Chambers' bedroom on the 2nd floor. The professor slept soundly, unaware of the intruder in his home. Russell placed a hand over Chambers' mouth, pressing his weapon against the man's temple. Chambers woke instantly, eyes wide with fear. Dr. Chambers, Russell said quietly, or do you prefer the professor? We need to talk. Russell secured Chambers to a chair in his home office, where soundproofing for video conferences would prevent any noise from alerting neighbors. Russell Boyd, I presume, Chambers said, remarkably composed despite his situation. I've been expecting you, though not quite like this. You've been looking for me, Russell replied. Now you've found me. Indeed, the Special Forces operator who derailed years of planning, millions in investment. The father who wouldn't look the other way when his family was threatened. Speaking of threats, Russell said, I heard your phone conversation. 3 days until you proceed regardless. Care to explain what that means for my son? Chambers sighed. A contingency. One I'd prefer not to implement. Russell's hand tightened on his weapon. You won't be implementing anything once I'm done here. Before you do something irrevocable, Mr. Boyd, perhaps you should consider the full picture. Chambers nodded toward his computer. Check the files marked Prometheus. See what Reynolds was really helping me acquire. Against his better judgment, Russell accessed the files, keeping Chambers in his peripheral vision. The documents detailed an autonomous defense system designed to identify and neutralize threats before they materialized, terrorist attacks, mass shootings, even military coups. You're building an AI weapon, Russell said. I'm building a shield, Chambers corrected. A system that could save thousands of lives, prevent conflicts before they begin, by giving an algorithm the power to decide who lives and dies, by removing human error and emotion from critical security decisions. Chambers leaned forward as far as his restraints allowed. Imagine a world where the next bin Laden is identified and neutralized before he can orchestrate an attack, where school shooters are flagged and intercepted before they can acquire weapons. And who controls this system? You. It controls itself. That's the point. No political agenda, no prejudice, no hesitation when action is required. Russell closed the files. And you think that justifies threatening a 14-year-old boy, using my son as leverage? Regrettable, Chambers admitted. Reynolds went too far there. I authorized surveillance, information gathering, but not threats against your family. That was his initiative, not mine. You expect me to believe that? Check the communications in the Rhodes folder. You'll see my explicit instructions to Reynolds that no harm should come to civilians, especially children. Russell kept his weapon trained on Chambers while he checked the reference files. The emails confirmed Chambers' claim. He had specifically instructed Reynolds to keep operations clean and to avoid involving Travis. Reynolds was becoming a liability, Chambers continued. Volatile, escalating beyond parameters. If you hadn't stopped him, I would have been forced to terminate our arrangement. Very convenient, Russell said skeptically. And now you expect me to just walk away? After your people have been searching for me, planning to use my son as leverage? Not quite. Chambers straightened in his chair. I'm offering you a choice, Mr. Boyd. Work with me instead of against me. Your skills, your experience, they would be invaluable to my operation. In exchange, I guarantee your son's absolute safety. More than safety, security, opportunities, a future beyond anything you could provide alone. Russell laughed humorlessly. You're offering me a job? After everything that's happened? I'm offering you purpose, Chambers replied. The same purpose that drove you to join the military, protecting the innocent, securing a safer world, just with more effective tools. For a moment, Russell tried to see the world through Chambers' eyes, a system that could prevent attacks before they happened, save lives that would otherwise be lost. The soldier in him recognized the appeal, but the father in him remembered Travis's fear, the trauma the boy had endured because of men like Chambers who believed the ends justified any means. You're right about one thing, Russell said finally. I do want a safer world, especially for my son. He raised his weapon, and that starts with eliminating threats like you. Chambers' composure cracked. You'd be making a terrible mistake. My work is too important. The technology is already developed, the network established. Killing me won't stop it. I'm not going to kill you, Professor, Russell said, lowering his weapon. I'm going to expose you. He held up a small device. Everything you've said in the last hour has been recorded. Your files have been copied. By morning, the FBI, Homeland Security, and the University Board will all have detailed evidence of your operation, your methods, and your threats against a military family. They'll bury it, Chambers said desperately. I have connections, people who understand the importance of my work. Some might try, Russell acknowledged. But I've learned a few things about leverage myself. The files have also gone to selected media outlets, congressional oversight committees, and military intelligence. Too many channels to suppress completely. He stood, pocketing the recording device. Your career is over, Professor. Your network will be dismantled. Your technology will be seized. And you'll spend the rest of your life in a federal prison wondering where you miscalculated. They'll come after you, Chambers warned. My associates, my backers. They have resources you can't imagine. Let them come, Russell replied calmly. I'll be waiting. But understand this. If anything happens to my son, if he so much as has a nightmare because of you or your people, there won't be a place on this earth where you can hide from me. And next time, I won't be so merciful. Russell left Chambers secured to the chair, the evidence already transmitting to the destinations he'd arranged. By the time the professor was found, it would be too late to contain the damage. 3 days later, the news broke. Dr. Elias Chambers, respected academic and defense consultant, arrested on charges of conspiracy, illegal weapons development, espionage, and threatening a federal officer's family. His network was unraveling as associates scrambled to distance themselves or negotiate deals. Russell watched the coverage from the military school where he'd reunited with Travis. The boy seemed lighter somehow, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "Is it really over this time?" Travis asked as they packed his things. Russell nodded. "Chambers' operation is shut down. The people who protected him are running scared. There's no one left to threaten us." "What about Mom?" "She's where she needs to be," Russell said, serving her sentence, facing the consequences of her choices. "Will I ever see her again?" Russell placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "That's up to you when you're ready. She's still your mother, despite everything. But no one will force you to have contact if you don't want it." Travis considered this. "Maybe someday. Not now. Wherever and whenever you decide, I'll support you." As they drove home, Travis asked the question Russell had been expecting. "What happens to us now, Dad?" Russell had given this considerable thought. "I've requested a training assignment in Colorado. Mountain Division. New place, new start for both of us. If you're okay with that." Travis looked out at the passing landscape. "Yeah, I think I'd like that." Russell smiled, feeling true hope for the first time in months. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be scars, memories that couldn't be erased. But they would face them together, father and son, survivors of a betrayal that had failed to break them. As for Adrian, Reynolds, Chambers, and all the others who had plotted against them, they were fragments of a past best left behind. Russell had protected what mattered most, had shown Travis that some bonds couldn't be broken, even by the deepest betrayal. "Colorado it is," then Russell said. "Time to start the next chapter." Travis smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "I'm ready if you are." And for the first time since that night, he'd heard Travis's warning on the phone. Russell truly believed they would be okay. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.